Welcome back to another session. I hope you were well. I want to talk about the habits that we acquire in today's session. And I think this has particular relevance to the conversation about mind stuff, anxiety, worry, fear, depression, and for many, disease. Most of our actions, most of our daily actions are done subconsciously. Some of our habits um, have been acquired over many, many years without much thought. In today's session, what I want to share and what I'd like to put across to you is there are certain habits that one can engage in and one will find happiness. There are also certain habits that one can engage in and will find worry, doubt, fear, anxiety, and disease. We get to choose what habits we have. If we find, and if you find, for example, that you are in a state or in a place where you're struggling with controlling your thoughts, your mind, and you are suffering psychologically, mentally, emotionally, some of your suffering could be, not all of them, but could be as a result of your habits. You have acquired habits that are causing suffering, and you can acquire new habits that will bring peace, restoration, contentment, and prosperity, or a sense of gratitude. We know for a fact, over many years of doing the research, that what you do daily determines, if you persist in such daily actions, determines who you become permanently. This is saying you are what you eat. In other words, your physical health is a manifestation of the inputs you've been given on a daily basis. What you do daily and consistently determines who you become permanently. And because the secret to your life is hidden in your daily routines and your daily actions, if you want to change the outcomes, you don't focus on changing the outcome itself. You simply have to change the habits, the routine, or the rituals you engage in on a daily basis, and it is almost inevitable that your outcomes will change. To attempt to change the outcomes first without changing yourself is the struggle against the very existence of things. It will not work. And for many people, what we find is that those who suffer from depression and anxiety, you're trying everything possible to change something without, but you haven't first changed or got rid of the enemy within. Get a piece of paper and put a piece of paper next to your bed and make note of what happens every day from the moment you wake up. Make note of what comes to your attention by virtue of your habits and your actions. For some of you, you might find the first thing people do when they wake up is either what they say in the first few seconds upon waking up, or what they do not say. Make a note of this. Do you wake up with gratitude and thankfulness in your heart? Are you happy to see a new day? Or is it possible that for some reason, and who knows that reason, even though you've woken up that day, your vibration is not pure, it's not positive, it's either neutral or negative, something you're not happy about in the first few minutes. And for some people, we tell ourselves, well, I'm not an early morning person. I have to have my coffee first. So coffee has become the god that gives you abundance. I'm not myself. I can't be nice to people. Don't take whatever I say too seriously before I have my coffee. You're indicating that there's something lacking in the day that has been created for which you've been gifted. On the other hand, there are other people who wake up and the moment you open your eyes, you feel elated. Not because you were not expecting to be in this new day, but because you're still grateful nonetheless. And the first thing some people will do will be to put the right foot out of the bed, or sometimes the left foot out of the bed. That is a habit. The way you get out of the bed is a habit. Make note of it. What do you do when you walk out of the bedroom or when you get out of the bed? For some people, they go straight to the bathroom. For some other people, they sit down. Some other people, they go on their knees and say their prayers. It doesn't matter what you do. The point of the exercise is for you to make and take note of what you are doing on a daily basis. And just look through the list. And as you go through the day, make a note of where your thoughts are. What are you feeling? What vibration are you on? What frequency are you on? Do you find actually you're identifying everything that is wrong? Wrong about the village, wrong about the town, the city, your neighbors, the streets, the people, the way they're dressed. Just make a note of it. The purpose of all of this is for you to have an idea of the routines, the rituals, the habits that control and govern your life. Most of all suffering comes from the paradigms. A paradigm is simply a composition of several habits that have become part of what we might even say a culture unto itself. We call it frozen tradition. In other words, you've done things for a certain number of days, weeks, months, years. It's become habitual and instinctual. That if we freeze such behavior, and that's all we ever experience. So for some people, they say, that's just the way I am. And that's an indication that the person is saying, my habits have made me, they've controlled me. And one of the things to do if you're suffering from anxiety or depression is, in addition to paying attention to your actions, pay attention to your thoughts. What are you thinking of? Are they thoughts of good reports? Are they praiseworthy? Are they kind? Are they noble? Are they gestures in good faith? Or do you find yourself arguing with your boss in your mind, arguing with your spouse in your mind, identifying all of what is wrong with the world, arguing with people on social media? These are all habits. You see, habits are too light to be felt until they become too heavy to be broken. The chains of habits, too light to be felt until they become too heavy to be broken. And our habits control our lives very, 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 very slowly in a subtle way. And one of the reasons you have to pay attention to what you are doing is so that it's not taking you in the direction that you do not want to go. One of the things I actually had to have found, and this is perhaps a criticism towards myself, is, like, for example, as I'm sharing this with you, there's something you can see that I cannot see, which is my body language, the expressions of my face. Am I using as much of my muscles in the body, in my face, to communicate? And there are people who, when I watch them teach or speak, I'm drawn to them, even with less words. They don't have to say too much. And for someone like myself who isn't that great a communicator or skilled orator, the opportunity to look back and see something like a video or a mirror in front of me allows me to correct things I'm doing on a daily basis that are not helping me in the long term. And that's the whole point I'm getting at, which is you need to have a mirror up against yourself every day. A mirror that tells you, these are your thoughts. Hey Jane, over the past hour, you've thought about killing yourself, you've thought about taking extra medication, you've thought about not being good enough, you've thought about all the negative things your father said to you when you were 16, you've thought about this and that, your boyfriend not being happy, not having a boyfriend, getting divorced. These are all your thoughts. That's the mirror in your face. And the question really is, imagine if I came to you every single time and all I did was present to you everything that was wrong about you. There will be very little inspiration and hope. Now, in a similar manner, the reason it is important to get hold of your habits and your routines is so that you empower yourself every day rather than restrict or limit yourself. You see, we all have real limits, but we also have what we call self-imposed limits. Imagine your real limits at this big circle. I don't have something that I can use. Imagine this circle in there to be your real limits. Your real limits. We also have, and this real limits could be as part of our ontological nature, biology, but it doesn't matter what genre we put this limit in. We'll use the ontological aspect. There's also something that we call our self-imposed limits. And what we tend to find is that our self-imposed limits are much more narrower in diameter than our real limits. So on the outside, you have your real limits based on your ontological nature. For example, biology. It could be a height thing, it could be an abilities thing in terms of physical strength, but we also have self-imposed limits. Our self-imposed limits are normally smaller than our real limits. And many of us actually live our lives in this shaded area of self-limitation. In the shaded area. Whereas we have all of this abundance of possibilities. And one of the reasons we live in that conditioned space is because of the habits, the paradigms, the routines, the rituals that we do every single day, both in thought, feeling, and actions. And people who live a life that we call them high performers, people who are at ease, faith-filled life, people who are living a life of purpose and meaning, you tend to find that their lives are centered around their real limits. It is not narrow, rather it very closely tracks the actual limits. They're almost one and the same. They're not special people. They've just learned how the mind works, how the body works, and they've used it to their advantage. We have limitations and we have limits. Most of us have limitations placed on us that are just purely psychological, mental, and emotional. It's something we've done to ourselves. No one else has put it on us. Now, for a smaller group, some other people may have placed it on you by virtue of your parents, your association, your environment. But if you are a functioning adult, and if you can recognize that you are painfully suffering, you can take away the cloak from you. Just throw it away. It's not yours. You've heard me say before that if you are struggling in life, as a matter of fact, if you are depressed, and if you're constantly anxious and having mental health issues, the yoke you're carrying is not yours. It belongs to another. Not another person, but it just belongs somewhere else. And if you are struggling, it means you're carrying a yoke that is not yours. You see, because the universe says, my yoke is not too heavy for you. The burden I place on you is not too much. Yes, I do place a cross on your shoulders, but it hasn't come to kill you or to limit you. It's come to make you grow, make you stronger. And therefore, if you are suffering more than you should, it's possibly that your habits, your paradigms, your rituals, your routines have put you in chains. And the chains were put on when they were too light to be felt. And they become so heavy now that you can't break them. And the only way you can actually get past that process of breaking through begins with just deciding. Don't worry about the future. Say today, I change. Don't say, well, I'll set a goal and I'll take small steps. Just simply say, I'm a different person. I choose to change. Become born again. Become anew. Let go of your former self. Yes, the person who was described mental health issues, mental health advocate, suffering from amnesia, suffering from depression, suffering from rape and incest. That is the old you. You were Saul. The road to Damascus has come, the light has shined on you, you've fallen off your beast, and now your name is Paul. So that you can actually then say, the things I used to love, I now hate. And the things I used to hate, I now love. Why? Because you can change. A breakthrough happens in a moment. If you wanted to. Breakthrough can also take a generation of 30, 40 years. but that comes with pain and suffering. You just have to let go and let God. But more importantly, you have to recognize and you can have to say, listen, I am in a prison, and this prison was self-created. I placed myself here without my knowledge because I was not paying attention to what I did every day. This is part of the reason why, for most people, having a small inner circle, loved ones, friends, family, who are around you, who love you and care about you, and love you so much that they do not want to leave you the way you are, and they would risk losing the friendship because they believe that the potential you have and the person you could become is who they are obligated to serve and not the person you are in the present. Having such people around you can enable you transform your life, can enable you look towards a better future, a better reality, and sometimes can inspire you in whatever means and methodology used, through education, through motivation, and even sometimes through criticism done rightly, or even through shame done rightly. The point being that we self-sabotage because we do not know better. And sometimes we think we know it all when we are just ignorant. And having people around you who can say, you know, I noticed you've started to have a glass of wine every day, and that's perfectly your choice to make, but it's become a habit over the past 2 months, and of late I can see you're now having 2 glasses of wine every day, and I'm saying to you that something has changed, that this is not you. And having a loved one, someone who cares about you well enough to say, I'm noticing changes, is everything okay, allows you to recognize what you are doing in the moment. Otherwise, we are on autopilot for most of our days. You see, there's a saying that 95% of people think that they think. Only about 2% of people think. Or rather, 95% of people, 2% of people think, 3% of people think that they think, 95% of people would rather die than think. Most of us confuse mental activity for reasoning. We have not been taught how to think and how to reason. And so we're not making calculated decisions logically, intelligently, objectively. We're simply going based on a flow. We notice this when we drive. You're driving on the motorway and you're blasting along and you're driving as fast as you can, and you're probably speaking to someone on the phone with your hands free. You're having an apple at the same time and you're changing gears. All of this is being done habitually. Instinct, habits, routines. And but suddenly you come up to perhaps a much larger vehicle, a large truck, and as you overtake it, rather than just use your one hand and carry on with your conversation, you tend to find actually you shift from the subconscious control to a conscious control. You hold the steering with 2 hands. Perhaps you actually pause in your conversation. You used to say, can you hold on for 2 seconds? And then you overtake, and then you get back into the lane. That is not you might say, the passing lane. And then you revert back to subconscious. You go back to one hand holding the steering wheel. You pick up the other apple or the banana, and you're talking and you're driving and you're thinking and you're laughing at the same time. You're changing gears, all done subconsciously. Depression works in the same way. Many people who suffer from depression and anxiety and worry and doubt are in a loop. It's a repetitive loop. It's a loop that simply says, this will continue to play until you stop it. Most people are not aware of their daily thoughts. Most people are not aware of the feelings they inhabit. They can say, I don't feel good, but they can't tell you why. And it all requires sacrifice. Standing guard at the gate of your eyes and choose what you see. Yes, I'm not suggesting you walk around and not look at things. No, I'm simply saying You choose what you give your emotion to, and you choose what you actually habitually play in the screen of your mind. You choose what you hear. You know, you listen to rap music and very vulgar rap music long enough, suddenly you will find it becomes part of your vocabulary. You listen to something more edifying and something more classical and something more gentlemanly or ladylike, you find actually you start to speak in the same manner. Why? Because we are who we spend the most time with. By osmosis, we pick up energies and frequencies and habits and behaviors and mannerisms of people around us, knowingly or unknowingly. Now, I'm going to bring today's session to a close by simply saying as follows. There is a habit to happiness. There's a ritual to the abundant life. There's also a habit to depression and anxiety, and there's a ritual to set life. You get to choose. Nobody will stop you from choosing. You get to choose. Now, I hope today's session has been useful.